Very well. Well, good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here on a chilly morning, not completely cold. We were all commenting of how warm Davos is this week. But I'm delighted to be here today talking about a topic that I think has a lot of impact, not only for today, but in particular for what we're going to do and what we're going to leave for the next generation. We're talking about modern construction methods for sustainable living. That, in fact, encompasses a lot of things. Encompasses the entire value chain from production of materials, construction, and then operation of buildings. The reason that we're talking about this is because it's a sector that emits a significant amount of carbon emissions. 40% of the world emissions have to do with this value chain. 50% of all extracted materials of the world go to the built environment. A third of the water consumption is consumed in the built environment, and a third of generated waste comes from the built environment. So it's an important topic for us to talk here. Let me just say a few words, and then I will introduce our esteemed panel. What makes it even more acute is that the built environment is growing tremendously. Population is growing significantly. By 2060, we're expecting to double the size of floor space, constructed floor space in the world. And in Saudi Arabia, with the ambitious growth plans, and actually not only plans, but realities that we're already seeing on the ground, NEOM being at the forefront of that, but there's many other giga and mega projects that are going on, is growing even faster than the global average. So what is very interesting of the kingdom is that there's an intentionality of embracing modern, innovative ways to realize these ambitions, right? And I want us to explore that whole value chain that I talked about, from construction materials to construction, and then to operations and energy savings during that. So let me quickly turn to our esteemed panel here. Let me start with the far left. We have Fahad Alhashim. Fahad Alhashim is an Assistant Deputy Minister for Investment Development. That's a massive portfolio. Fahad is in charge of, well, a number of things, but among them is really developing this sector with this intentionality that I was talking about. Welcome, Fahad.
Thank you, Mauricio. It's a pleasure to be back here again. More lively audience, which is always fun. And I think
yes,
we have a lot of great content for you today.
We look forward to that. And then to his right is Vishal Wanchoo. Vishal is a manufacturing guru, a manufacturing veteran, spending many years of your career in GE.
That's right.
And most lately leading Oxagon. And he's going to tell us a little bit more about Oxagon, because it's not only a massive undertaking, but it's a very interesting undertaking when it comes to industrial value chains, and we need to explore that. Welcome, Vishal.
Thank you, Mauricio. Great to be here.
Awesome. To his right, we have Mishal Almutlaq. Mishal is the Chief Investment Officer, Alfanar Projects. Alfanar Projects, as he will tell us in a little bit in more detail, is a large group in Saudi Arabia that is not only investing in production of construction materials, but also in renewable energy. So we're going to talk about the nexus of renewable energy and the ability for us to take out carbon of the equation in materials. And last but not least, welcome, Mishal. Last but certainly not least, Majid. Majid Mufi is the CEO of NEOM Investment Fund. He has a very interesting portfolio to combine investment for innovation, and for realization of these ambitions that NEOM has. And we're going to hear more from you during the session.
Happy to be here.
Thank you. Welcome all. So, well, let us jump in directly into this, and let's make it a dialogue. If anybody has a question during the conversation, please yell it out. This is an intimate setting, and it's a perfect way in Davos to have a full, intimate conversation about a topic. So let me start with you, Fahad, because I want to start from the general and then go to the particular. Let's think about Saudi Arabia as a whole. Considering these massive ambitions, lots of giga projects, mega projects that are under development and planned, what is KSA doing, policies, programs, investment attraction, et cetera, to develop this value chain that we're talking from construction materials to construction, modern and innovative construction methods, and then also more efficient, operations. Over to you, Fahad.
Thank you, Mauricio. Of course, many know so much about the kingdom, but many have not yet dug into the details. And it's great to have a dedicated session for such a critical sector, because in my point of view, it is the largest, most attractive, most dynamic, most ambitious sector in the world. If you look comparatively at Saudi Arabia's construction market today, across the entire world, you're not going to find a more dynamic, larger demand for every single aspect of the construction value chain. As we've studied the market, of course, as you're aware, Saudi's economy has grown at almost over 7% GDP in the last couple of years, 11% in the last few years, more precisely, but that has been driven primarily by the non-oil sector. And if you look across the non-oil GDP, construction and real estate are almost constituting around 19%. So all of this activity is really actually playing an integral role in driving our transition from an oil-driven economy. And gladly, we have had over, I think, almost 60% of our GDP coming in from the non-oil activities, which is a far sort of, I would say, a big contrast to where we started on this journey in 2017. But as we look at the market itself, so as we stand today, the market's valued is around just over $120 billion. So that's looking at all of the projects that are being pumped into the market and on an annual basis. The construction spend, as we forecast it in the next 5 to 6 years, is just over 1.6 trillion US dollars. So that's the amount of spend that will go into the construction market. Now, if you look at, and many think that it's just purely driven by the government or the PIF projects, but actually, surprisingly, it's not really just the government. So if you look at the private sector, the private sector is looking to pump in over 1.2 billion square meters of built-up area. So there is actually strong activity from the private sector building residential units, mixed use, commercial spaces across many of what we consider the 5 major sort of populated cities in Saudi, which is Riyadh, Jeddah, Dammam, Mecca, Medina, and then you get into the many secondary cities as well. So with all of this activity, it's critical for us to also look at how we build the entire sector. We know predominantly most of construction has been done cast and steel, traditional, very labor intensive, and that, as we looked at sort of this methodology and the demand we have, we figured out, wait a minute, there's a problem that we need to sort of address, because we would need around an additional 15 million labors just to sort of...
Say the number again? 15?
Million additional labors if we approach it traditionally. That's based on the current gap that we've identified in the market. So, of course, easing up specific regulations and policies around the use of labor, temporary visas is critical. But at the same time, a transition to modern methods is also critical to sort of limit that dependencies on blue-collar labor in
Right.
many of these projects. So not to go on for too long, and I'm afraid I've done it again, but
We'll come back to you.
yeah, but I think there's many things that the government's doing. We have a big financing program for modern methods of construction. Already over 1.3 billion Saudi riyals of financing from the Saudi Industrial Development Fund have been sort of granted to manufacturing facilities that do prefabrication.
Okay.
And in addition, we have a big, wide array of incentives for R&D, tax rebates in the base economy and within the special economic zone. And I'll stop here, and maybe I'll answer.
All right. When we come back to you, we want to hear a little bit of the early green shoots that you see as a result from those programs. Thank you very much for that, for setting it up for us, Fahad. Also with the scale, right, to understand what the scale and the speed of growth is. I want to stay a little bit on the same topic, but come to you, Majid. Also, you head the NEOM Investment Fund. You're also one of those investors in the kingdom that is promoting this innovation, that is making strategic investments, not only financial investments, into the sector. So can you tell us a little bit of what part of the value chain are you focusing? Maybe tell us a little bit more about NIF. And who are you partnering to accelerate this innovation that Fahad is talking about?
Thank you, Mauricio. I mean, let's set some context. What we are building is one of the most sustainable projects in the world. But for us not to think of the different practices of construction to also be sustainable in the way in which we get there would be a real miss. So $500 billion is what's being dedicated to a NEOM region development. A lot of that money could be leveraged in order for us to start new modes of construction methods, new practices that haven't been done before, with the scale that's required to really help us and turbocharge our own delivery. So what the NEOM Investment Fund does is really support all 15 economic sectors and grow. Part of those 15 economic sectors are energy, food, water, but one of them is design and construction and manufacturing, which Vishal leads as well. When we think of design and construction, we are already thinking about what are the requirements of NEOM in order for us to be able to try to reduce costs, reduce inefficiencies, use automation and robotics into the new modes. And we've already partnered with Samsung, and we're happy to share that this joint venture with Samsung C&T, or in construction and trading, is a $350 million joint venture in which we've already signed the agreements. We are putting that into work. What that joint venture is going to do is really focus on automating rebar manufacturing. So automated rebars, just consider the amount of steel that's going to be required and the amount of labors that Fahad was alluding to, how much cutting and bending and putting cages that's going to be required to come into concrete reinforcements.
And Mishal, just to clarify, you're talking about automating the process of structuring, of putting it...
100%. So today, the conventional practices, rebars will come in on site, they would weld it, and so that's why you would need thousands of laborers to do that. There's a lot of consideration around safety, a lot of consideration around waste of steel, non-standardized
quality too.
So this joint venture is going to bolt on technologies, and what we've done is we invested into venture capital, into a company called GMT out of Denmark. They have a robotic automation arm that's going to be utilized to bring in the steel after the cutting and bending, and then creating the cages. What you do there is that you're able to chug so many cages, prefabbed, and take them to the site, as opposed to welding at the site. Now, this is the first of its kind, of its scale globally. And so for us to actually start a new mode of how we're going to even sell those cages to the EPC contractors, how you're going to source the steel, how it's going to be done as a new business model, that is already very nouveau, very of a new practice. And so this is why we really want to capitalize on the spend and the requirements of NEOM but to also ensure that these are sustainable modes of business that are going to continue to work through.
This is fascinating. And you know, the interesting part of what many things that you said, but also the fact that you're leading the world on a new way of doing it. This is exactly what we want to leverage the demand, the pent-up demand that is coming for building capabilities, not only for Saudi, but also for the world.
True, I'll just say this, I mean, as we think of ourselves as an investment arm, we think of using investments to help structure the best deals. So yes, we're structuring a joint venture deal, but we're also using venture capital to bolt on new technologies. And GMT is one of many other technologies that are going to come into this business.
So you attract venture capital to partner with you so that you can both invest in one
Correct.
deal.
And Samsung's also like-minded as us, and they're looking for new modes of technologies that are coming in, some in-house developed and some things that we're actually buying and bringing in. So creating a system and bolting on technologies, that's the mode that we're going through investments.
Very good. Thank you, Majid. And we'll continue to talk a little bit more about that. But I think that maybe leads me to you, Vishal, a little bit. Maybe tell us a little bit about Oxagon, because I think maybe the common understanding is it's a big industrial zone, and I think it's much more than that. Tell us a little bit about that, and tell us how are you planning to realize the ambitions of Oxagon, a floating industrial zone. How are you leveraging renewable energy to now develop the region, but also then to inject into the industrial value chains that you're building?
Great. Thanks, Mauricio. It's a pleasure to be here. It's good to see bright and early an audience listen to this interesting topic. So Oxagon, and Mauricio and I chatted a little bit before we entered the panel. I think it'd be good to set some context on what Oxagon is before we talk about modern methods of construction and what we're doing. So Oxagon is one of 6 regions within NEOM, and it is the home for advanced and clean industries. It's located in the southwest corner of NEOM. It's on the Red Sea. The master plan of Oxagon was approved 4 years ago. We've made rapid progress in acceleration of the realization of the master plan and really attracting advanced and clean industries to locate in Oxagon. We're very specific in which manufacturing sectors that we're focused on. There's 7 manufacturing sectors, but really over the last couple of years, we've really focused our energies on 3 main sectors. One is renewable energy. The whole energy transition is critical for the future everywhere. AI and building sustainable AI data centers. So we've had lots of recent discussions and progress on that. And the third one being the modern methods of construction, given the large-scale construction that's taking place, not just at NEOM, but as Fahad said, really, all over Saudi Arabia. And I think we can really help build supply chains that can help with that, and really move construction from the way it's been done over the last 100 years to really modern methods. So I just want to touch a little bit about on the progress we've made. Importantly for us, the port of NEOM, which is now part of Oxagon, is operational, and it's key for us because it was really an early enabler to help set up the projects, the early projects, and the first one being the green hydrogen project, which is the largest green hydrogen project in the world. It's made significant progress. That project will be in production by the end of next year, producing 650 tons of green hydrogen per day. And that really helps stand up Oxagon in an accelerated way. And it is the heart of the energy transition, future of energy transition, the green hydrogen. And what we've done to kind of augment that is we've recently been working on localizing, together with PIF actually. PIF has been a visionary in setting up 3 joint ventures in solar and wind. This is, of course, again, a very critical part of energy transition. So we're going to be the home, I would say, outside of China, of the largest footprint of renewable energy manufacturing. So we have solar ingots and wafers, solar cells and modules, and wind. This will, of course, fuel the renewable energy drive that we have across the kingdom, and I'll touch upon what we're doing at NEOM, but also set up Oxagon as an export hub for state-of-the-art wind technology, solar cells and modules that can be shipped out to Europe and as well as the U.S. markets. And these are roughly 20 gigawatts per year production capacity, so they're huge. To put in context, the U.S. consumes about 20 gigawatts in 1 year, right, of solar. So these are very, very large scale.
By when will you have this capacity?
So, we're in discussions. There are three Chinese companies in joint ventures with PIF. The groundbreaking, Mauricio, is supposed to happen in the first half of this year for all three companies. The production will be online. Target is in 26 and 27. In the wind will come online sooner. Solar cells and modules probably by the end of next year, and then ingots and wafers in 27. So, great traction. And Majid talked about sustainability and how important that is for NEOM. So part of the sustainability really strategy for us is to provide for 100% renewable energy, and that's what attracts manufacturers to come to us. So we want to make sure that we're providing the highest level of sustainability from an energy standpoint, highest level of sustainability from a water standpoint. These industries consume a large amount of energy and water, right? So that's where the biggest demand is going to be for these sources. And that is part of our energy master plan and water plan.
I mean, that's tremendous, right? The point about manufacturers wanting to come to you because they're seeking to take out carbon out of the equation.
Exactly. I want to touch upon quickly, I want to give you a practice. I'm going to switch to modern methods of construction, and we've been looking at how we can localize supply chain for modern methods of construction. And the best way to visualize this is in a real live example. So we built really our first community where we're housing our employees, as well as the Green Hydrogen Project, as well as other engineering companies that are working with us. And we have a residential community that we opened up in October of last year. Mm-hmm. And I want to play a video for you. It's the best way to visualize. So we're building essentially a community that'll house about 3,000 people. And this is roughly about 1,200 apartments, 17 residential buildings. This project, from start to completion, is going to be finished in 1 year. In 1 year.
Incredible.
So we started in April of 2024, and we will complete the entire project by April of this year. And I want to play you a video. I don't know if everyone can see it. Hopefully you can. And I'll tell you what it is. And for those of you, maybe some of you can watch it on the side, but this is putting up one residential building. This building was put up in 9 days. So it tells you the power of using volumetric construction technology. So traditional construction, we would have had probably 2x or 3x the amount of labor on site. It would have taken a much longer time. You can never put up a building that is 6 stories high in 10 days. And this is what was done with so this is after the foundation is set. All of the apartments, every single apartment is produced in the factory, right? Fully fitted out. The kitchens, the bedrooms, the bathrooms, furnished, appliances in, and essentially it's almost like a Lego puzzle, right? So you basically bring these modules in from the manufacturing plant and essentially stack them on site. And the final connections are made on site, right? Mechanical, electrical. So you can see the power of this. It's got incredible benefits in terms of safety, the environment. You're not creating a whole lot of dust. Truck movements of materials.
That's right.
So I think the key for us is how do we scale this, right? So The challenge has been that this industry hasn't had scale.
Right.
And this is, by the way, surprisingly, the largest volumetric construction project that's been done to date. So it tells you how much more, I would say, potential we have, right?
Right.
So one of the things that we want to do is really set up factories in Oxagon that will produce these volumetric modules, right?
These have not been built in.
These have not been produced in Oxagon yet, right?
Okay.
So Samsung is one of the companies we're talking to. They're very interested in this technology and to set up factories to really scale this.
No, that's truly fascinating, Vishal. Thank you for sharing this. I think that a video is 1,000 pictures and a picture is 1,000 words.
That's right.
I think this is really, really, truly an accomplishment. Thank you for telling us a little bit of what's happening in Oxagon. I'd like to move to you, Mishal. You represent Alfanar, and maybe tell us a little bit to contextualize what Alfanar does. But you know, you're both in building or in producing construction materials and in renewable energy. So how are you bringing those two together? Are you planning to use your renewable energy in your own factories? Just tell us a little bit about how do you connect the two?
Yeah. Okay, thank you. So just for people who have an idea, Alfanar is an energy company. We're based in Saudi Arabia, but we have presence in Europe as well as India. Those are the markets that we serve. What we've seen actually in the last 4 years is there's demand for two things. There is demand for real estate in terms of places for people to live, work, as well as play. That has had issues in terms of prices. That has had issues also in terms of project management. Costs have gone up, land prices have gone up. So having modularity has really helped with these kind of things. Getting shorter duration of construction, like Vishal showed, really helps with the price inflation. We don't know what's going to happen. Yeah. And there's a lot of volatility and risk coming up. I think that the client see, the developer, as well as the EPCs, and having all these tools at YouTube really helps. Also, we're seeing something else. As the largest manufacturer of electrical products in the Middle East, we see quite a good amount of demand now for, pre-COVID, we've had wind and solar really being about the generation because there was at such low penetration. Now, when we're going up in penetration, there's issues with the grid, there's issues with how can we get the frequency to the right level, how can we also have microgrids. So in terms of certain communities, having, let's say, an industrial area or maybe in an off-site residential area, how can you have a battery, solar, diesel, all managed? What we've been trying to do in the last 3 years, 4 years, is to invest into these technologies and manufacturing. Part of that has been smart meters where we've rolled those out. We've also worked with our clients on SF6 free electrical products. So these, for electrical products, actually they used a gas which was 1,000 times worse than CO2 in terms of GHG effects. We now have a trial in Saudi Arabia as well as in Europe with the clients, and we're hoping to launch our product and have it commercially available to them or to be sold to them very soon. And we've also seen now a lot of demand for batteries and battery integration. So for one client, we integrated now, we've executed a project in 11 months. And in one project which we own, we've actually had battery, solar, and diesel generators, biodiesel generators, which were able to satisfy 25% demand, completely microgrid. So we're seeing more demand for this. Mm-hmm. We're seeing demand for this to come faster and quicker, to come up with the modular construction, to come up with data centers. We can't build power plants as it used to be for 3 years, 2 years and a half. It's a completely different world. So there is a lot of investment in new products. And NEOM and Saudi Arabia is a good place to apply this. There's high demand in a very short period of time.
That's right.
And also, I think the client and the country realizes if you do it shorter, you should be able to contain the price inflation. Once it stretches, that's when the budgets go over, you change the project managers and so on. So we're quite investing more and more into this. We're hoping to have less embedded carbon. We already use solar and renewables for our factories. There are 17 factories in Riyadh. We're using automation, so we've actually worked with Oxagon about one automation program where we've been able to increase productivity per line by 13%. and we hope to do more of that too. And also less material use in the products. So we're hoping to do more of that in the future.
It's really encouraging to hear that you already have abated a lot of carbon, not only carbon, but other gases, as you say, emissions in your production. I think that using a little bit of what you just said, Mishal, and coming back to you, Majid, we're all talking about big volumes of construction. We've had the opportunity in my company to do some analysis for different mega projects on what would the construction demand do to value chains, to supply chains around the world. And invariably, there's a challenge, right? It's insufficient. If we're going to build at the scale and at the speed, to your point, Mishal, that we need. So, Majid, tell us a little bit about how you're using this. Well, contextualize the size, if you can, and then tell us how you're using that demand to actually create innovation, to create an industry that didn't exist just a few years ago.
Thanks, Mauricio. NEOM region is 26,000 square kilometers. And so if we say we're going to be building out 5% of that, we're already over 1,300 square kilometers just there. The amount of road requirements, the amount of energy infrastructure, water, desalination plants, it is massive. You're starting a new economy, you're starting a new region, and it is greenfield. It's as greenfield as it gets. We're also building in areas that are difficult to reach to, so new roads just to get to the construction sites there. We're doing islands, and Dala was launched. The amount of preparation in terms of just bringing in the equipment and the materials just to that site, it is like a war zone. So if you can imagine what it means to be at battle, trying to hit the timelines,
yeah,
that's NEOM. I think, when we take a look at on the battlefield how many people are down there, there's about 140,000 construction workforce laborers today. And with the employees, we're about 145 altogether. That's all on site. And that didn't exist a few years ago.
Yeah.
And the trajectory just continues to go up. If we go back to the discussion that we had, or the example we gave, the automated rebar cage assembly, that's just one project. That's going to use and help bring in 4.6 million tons of rebar steel just to do the first 3 modules of the line. 4.6 million tons of steel, that is massive. To give you some benchmarks, that is essentially the amount of steel that was used in Burj Khalifa 87 times. So imagine Burj Khalifa, 87 of Burj Khalifas, just to get the first 3 modules of the line going, in terms of contextualizing what the size of what we're dealing with here. So, I think there's no shortage of requirements on cement, on glass, on steel, that are going to be required mainly over the next 10 years, between now and 2034, as we deliver on the first 3 modules of the line. We also got Trojena up in the mountainous regions. We've got a few other areas that are currently being developed. And so the demand on supply chains are going to be huge. The demand on EPC and contracting is going to be massive. The requirements on project management and firms like yourself are also going to be required. So it's not just the commodity side, it's also the engineering and services side that I would not, be shy to bring up as well.
Right, no, it's an important aspect. And can you tell us a little bit of how you're using that volume in your investments? When you make investments, are you focusing that capability in NEOM and then trying to expand that beyond?
I think, first and foremost is, as we talked about, it's not just about creating something that is sustainable, it is actually really attempting to try to create it in a sustainable manner.
Right.
Carbon emissions that come out of cement, carbon emissions that come out of steel. So green steel is a focus, reducing carbon emissions as we're producing cement and ready mix. These are areas of interest for us. And so that's going to require a lot of investments in turbocharging to industrialize and scale it. I would say that, the EPC business, the engineering, procurement, construction business, is a hard business to penetrate new technologies in. So I want to caveat with that and
Oh, it is.
preface with it.
Low margin.
Low margin.
Lots of risk.
The culture is also just very used to conventional methods of construction. To bring in new technologies and to say, hey, this is a better thing. I mean, there's that meme that says, back in the old days, cavemen were using a square to push a cart.
Yeah.
Somebody's saying, look, I got a wheel that's much better for you. And they're saying, yes, but we're really busy, we'll get to it. And it's such a miss because
That's true.
there's so many opportunities like that.
So real.
But it does require a concerted effort. It does require the incentives and the subsidies that Fahad touched on. It does require the purchasing power and the leveraging all that to really drive new modes of construction, new supply chains, in order for that to be sustainable. And that's not an easy thing. So investment goes only as far as the willingness from the receiving end and what has been conventional.
Yeah, that is absolutely true. And I think bringing all the points together is not only about putting money into things, but then connecting what you're investing in to the demand and so on. We only have 5 minutes left, if my clock is correct here. But I want to go back to you, Fahad, and talk about at a country level again. There must be a lot of challenges that come from these volumes, from these ambitious projects, not only NEOM, but also beyond. What are the supply chain challenges? What are the value chain challenges that you as a ministry are being deliberate in solving?
Well, that's a great question. Now, if we look at supply chain, we have to understand that it's not a micro thing. Okay, so supply chain disruptions don't sort of impact a single project. They impact regions. If you look, for example, at what happened in the Russian-Ukraine war, there was a significant supply disruptions that skyrocketed the price of steel. If you look at COVID, for example, when it hits and the sort of the imbalance, the shock therapy that happened between supply and demand, and the ability of supply to scale back, cutting down supply is actually much easier than ramping up again. So we have had in the last couple of years some great examples and case studies to look at what are the different types of supply chain disruptions that can happen. Of course, some commodities are priced globally, some are dependent highly on the local market itself. I would say that there is, if we separate them into products and services, on the product end, what we're trying to do is, first of all, help promote the local content. And I'm very proud and happy just to have one of our champions here, Alfanar. I personally, when I see their products, I buy blindly. I say it not just because they're here. I can take pictures of my room, all of my sockets are Alfanar, because I know it's not going to catch on fire.
Yeah.
And so such local manufacturing capabilities to be able to scale it up and also protect them against sort of demand disruptions as well is quite critical. We want to give local manufacturers the comfort to continue and expand their production lines and expand the products that they're offering to the market. That is, of course, one. And if wherever we see that local demand is not enough, then we help support them to export. And as part of the National Investment Strategy, we launched a program called the Global Supply Chain Resilience Initiative, where we have dedicated special economic zones where we seek to bring manufacturers to put presence in the kingdom, not just to serve locally, but to also re-export. And the kingdom is well positioned. If you look globally at, I would say, trade conflicts, East versus West, in some cases, geopolitical sort of changing driving forces. And also, we're quite blessed to be, positioned in the Red Sea, where already 13% of all global trade passes through there. And we have invested and will continuously invest in our infrastructure to connect the East to the West as well. Now, so that's on the product side. Now, if we look on the service side, we are actively working with all global contractors to help bring them into the market, to help them do joint ventures. Because if you look at the contracting landscape, we don't need just large-scale general contractors. Globally, the contracting market is 98% SMEs anyways. So we have to also nurture and grow these SMEs. And they need to sort of go into these mentorship programs with these large contractors and be sort of exposed to these challenges in order to learn and grow in their specific specialities. So what we're doing at the ministry is we launched an office called the International Contractor Office to help international contractors move to the kingdom, but also build partnership, access local supply chains, access local service or specialized contractors to help them also compete. But I think the most challenging aspect that we're trying to address now is we're all aware that contracting is a cash flow business. It gets tough. You have to have a thick skin if you're a contractor, for that, we're trying to sort of look at what are the options that we can provide to sort of ease some of the financial burdens. So instead of offering bank guarantees, we are working, for example, with Swiss Re, large insurance provider, to offer an insurance product instead of the contractor holding a big part of their sort of cash flow that they need in a sort of a guarantee. And we're constantly working, of course, with PIF, with the National Infrastructure Fund to launch financing programs to help contractors stay afloat, but also thrive and grow and build up these partnerships. So this is just some or a glimpse of what we're doing. There is many efforts around the scene, and the greatest thing about this that it's a collaborative effort. In this sector specifically, on a weekly basis, I'm on calls with PIF, NIF, MOM, the Ministry of Municipalities, the Contractors Authority, the Standards. Everybody is sort of working together because we realize that if we succeed in sort of building, and I would call this era in the kingdom's economic, I would say, history as a renaissance, because if we succeed, the models, the lessons learned that we will sort of showcase to the world in this upcoming period will be a great blueprint, not just for the region, but actually for the entire world. And that's why we're excited to learn, to provide these experiences, and to share all of our findings with our partners from all over the world.
Well, thank you, Fahad. I mean, that's inspirational. I think that, to start, that's a good way to start wrapping up today.
I don't have a question.
I was going to summarize, and then I'll open up for questions. Give me a second, if that's all right. Because this is just leading us to, we're talking not only about technology of modern methods of construction and innovation, we're talking about the business aspects of how do you build businesses. We're talking about people aspects of building capabilities in order to power those businesses. We're talking about the orchestration that is required for all of this to work. So it's not just one thing or the other. We're also talking here about how the intentionality can help us take advantage of stated ambitions and already decarbonize that process, and then put us in a place where we're going to be much more efficient operating. So I think with that, I wanted to ask a rapid fire, but I think we don't have too much time. Maybe we go to the question from
Thank you very much. My name is Imtiaz Hussain. I'm Managing Director of Alexa Capital. We are a global corporate and investment bank in London and New York, and I had the Middle East region as well. So Alexa, we are a spin-off from Jefferies. So the guy who was their global head of renewable energy and clean transition, he set up Alexa Capital in London before 16 years. And we specialize in clean tech, and we provide a range of strategic alternatives, recapitalization like 200 million and above for renewable energy companies. And looking at the transition to clean energy, currently in Saudi Arabia and in the GCC, clean energy is less than 10% of your energy mix. And this needs hundreds of billions of pounds going into energy transition, going towards clean energy, wind, solar, battery storage, hydrogen. And all over the world, there is two sources of capital. Number one is the banking system, and number two is the private capital. In US, before 20 years, 80% of the capital used to come from banking system. Now, 80% of the capital comes from the private capital, and the banks are gone down to just 20%. And you need the private capital who can come in. Yesterday, I was here.
Is that question coming in?
Yeah, just a question is coming up.
We're waiting for it.
Yeah.
Context.
So you need this private capital, and especially the big private equity funds and likes of Brookfield, who invest in everything that you do, and they have over $900 billion of assets under management. So how are you going to attract this capital, and especially the capital that you need to bring up the clean energy and energy transition, hundreds of billions of pounds? How are you going to bring that capital?
Who wants to give it a shot? How to attract that capital?
Go ahead, Majid.
Yeah, I mean, I really think it just really comes down to the projects themselves. So I think, where the rubber meets the road is, what is the project that people like a Brookfield would be interested into coming into? And our role is to really ensure that those business plans, those opportunities are bankable and are investable, that has a return equity that is risk adjusted, that's interesting for those types of institutional investors. There's no shortage of opportunities in Saudi Arabia in general. The amount of growth in technology and infrastructure projects that Brookfields or a BlackRock would be interested in is immense. So, I think Fahad talked about the National Infrastructure Fund, and, Infra now I think it's branded, the National Development Fund, Saudi Industrial Development Fund. These are all funding capabilities to support and provide liquidity that would be required for these projects. And the ambition and aspirations of what Saudi Arabia is offering has those types of projects for people to come into, especially with the sustainability factor that makes it green.
I'll just add very quickly that if you look at NEOM's energy master plan, it's about 60 gigawatts over the lifespan that we're envisioning as we build out NEOM. So it gives you the context of how much capital is needed. And in the early days, we're clearly investing in the renewable energy project. Now, the first, I would say, renewable energy project was a private investment already, right? So essentially three joint ventures, or three joint venture partners, $8.4 billion in the green hydrogen project. But this early, I would say, establishment of execution will attract private investment, right? In addition to the infrastructure fund and everything that the kingdom has to kickstart the process.
Final sort of piece of
Go ahead.
information on that. Now, of course, everybody's aware the kingdom has a communicated net zero target by 2060. And as part of that, we are seeking to reduce carbon emissions through two main programs. And I urge you to go research them and understand all the communicated targets. Beautiful thing is nowadays in the kingdom, we don't just put out statements, we publish these targets, and you can track how we're performing, because we sure hell like to track how we're performing. So
accountability on promises, right?
So on the renewable end, we have almost 130 gigawatt to be tendered out. We have an entity by the government created called the Renewable Energy Business Development Office under the Ministry of Energy. We are also, as we are managing to ensure that we, as we have done historically, seek to balance out the energy markets domestically, globally, and regionally as well. That's what we're trying to do as we move ahead in this transition in the renewable energy as well. So the office will be responsible to tendering out these projects. We have, of course, national champions in the space of renewable energy, Aqua Power, that is doing projects in the kingdom and are doing projects abroad. So we're building capabilities through national champions. We have a system in place to tender out these sort of, hopefully, I think 7 million homes will be connected to a grid that's powered by renewable energy. It's part of our objectives as well. So within this program, there's opportunities for developers, there's opportunities for financiers to come in and do consortiums, and yourself and the entities you mentioned can also go in, find the information, qualify, submit bids, and we like to operate in that sense in a competitive and transparent process.
Thank you, Fahad, and everyone. If I don't wrap this up, they're not going to invite me again because we're over time. So I'm just going to ask a rapid fire, one idea, one innovation, one investment. If you had to choose over the next 5 years in modern methods of construction, this value change that we talked about for sustainable living, what would that be? Rapid fire, who wants to start?
I think a lot of the earthworks that is taking place with those large caterpillar type machinery are all using diesel. I look forward to the day where those are actually electrified or changed out to some type of different modes of fuel.
That's a powerful one, and we've actually been discussing with Kat on that. That's a good one. Do we want to go with you, Mishal?
Yeah, sure. So I think maybe I won't talk about something specific, but just in general, thematically, I think quality, making sure that all these things have quality, so we don't need to replace it later on.
Right.
If we come in and
longevity is important.
Longevity, quality, making sure it has the products. I think concentrating on that from the get-go, making sure that there is that standard. That's quite important when you look at, and not just to jump in.
Very good. Good one.
I'm going to double down on the practical experience that we had, because I think it has so much potential to industrialize construction over the next, I would say, many decades.
Yes.
And it has positive impacts on safety, on cost, on the environment. So it's got a multitude of positive impacts. And the only way to do it is to actually drive scale.
Right.
And the way to drive scale is to establish proof points. As Majid said, right, there's a lot of reluctance to change. We've done this over the last 100 years the same way, and we don't want to change. So
that's right.
I think we've got to just establish that, as a milestone.
You're absolutely right, and considering that we need to double the size of the construction of the built environment in the next 2-3 decades.
That's right.
Thank you for that, Vishal.
I think I'll do two quick points. So I think the most critical aspect to achieve a realization and improve efficiency in this industry is the key enabler to offsite and modularization. And I think we have a lot of work to do in generative design. Because as we seek to shift away from traditional construction in order to dissect any building and retain its unique architectural design, you need to sort of find a way to design different components and then sort of dissect that and be able to sort of add that into different production lines. And only once we sort of master that craft that we could truly then be able to streamline and have a strong standardization process in order to deliver at the scale we want to do, but also doing it sustainably, because you can sort of scale down different models and production.
Fahad, that was a great comment at the end. We were able to inject AI, the topic of Davos this year, into this conversation, which is certainly an impactful one. I want to thank the panel for their candor and for sharing everything that you're doing in the kingdom right now. I wish you a lot of success with all those ambitious plans. And thank you to everyone for listening. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thanks.